Ian Ziering, the 90210 actor, was attacked by 5 bikers in LA, and new gender-neutral toy aisle law in California. Hi, it's Edward, back with another video. Please take a moment to click the thumbs up button below and consider subscribing to the channel. Please also share this video with your friends. Thank you for your support. Today, I read several news articles. I've included links to the articles in the description below. I encourage you to read the articles to support the authors and news sources. As a private American citizen, I'd like to report and share my transformative thoughts through commentary regarding small sections of these articles that are of public interest. Have you ever had a day where you just have to wonder what the world is coming to? That is how I felt today. I read an article today on yahoo.com put out by The Independent and written by Ariana Bio titled 90210 Actor Recounts Altercation He Had with Group of Bikers on New Year's Eve. According to the author, actor Ian Ziering, known for playing Steve Sanders on Beverly Hills 90210, said he got into a physical altercation with a group of people on mini bikes while driving in downtown Los Angeles on New Year's Eve. The author went on to say Mr. Ziering got out of his vehicle to survey any damage when suddenly the group began to physically attack him. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I watched this video and I was appalled. I am so glad that Ian Ziering and his young daughter are safe after surviving this violent incident. When I think of bikers, I reflect on the old 1985 Pee-wee's Big Adventure movie. In that movie, Pee-wee Herman knocks over a row of motorcycles outside of a biker bar. The biker gang there was called the Satan's Helpers. They all had black leather jackets, bandanas, and one of them had an eye patch. They looked like a bunch of scary pirates. That's not the kind of biker people we are talking about in the case of this Ian Ziering altercation. These looked like young people wearing sweatpants and sneakers. They weren't riding 2000cc Harley-Davidson hogs. They had these little mini bikes which resembled something that an Oompa Loompa would ride. One of the attackers looked like a woman, since the person was wearing a pink long-sleeve shirt and a pink vest. Maybe I'm making assumptions here. Perhaps it was a male wearing all pink, or perhaps it was a biological man who now identifies as a woman, or perhaps it was someone who is non-binary. I really don't know for sure. If any of these people are arrested, then we may know for sure. One of these assailants slipped as he tried to run after Ian Ziering and he wiped out on the road. Another guy about lost his pants as he was running and his butt crack was visible in the video footage. He had to pull up his pants at one point during the altercation. In my opinion, this wasn't a fair fight at all, since there were 5 people against Ian Ziering, and all of them except for one had a helmet. It's hard to defend yourself when you can't even strike the attackers in the face because they are wearing helmets. Ian Ziering at one point in the video narrowly avoided being struck in the back of the head by one of the attackers who had a pretty violent swing towards him. Perhaps someone in Hollywood should cast Ian Ziering as Jack Reacher in the next film. In the original Jack Reacher movie, Tom Cruise defeated 5 men outside of the bar in the street. Of course, that was a Hollywood movie. Ian Ziering had to deal with this in real life. There are so many things wrong with this incident. First, I don't know why Ian Ziering would have gotten out of his vehicle. I'm not trying to be critical of him. I'm sure he was in a state of shock during this incident and didn't have time to think. With that said, if someone struck my vehicle, the first thing I would do is call the police to get a police report. If I had been in his situation, I would have stayed in my Mercedes SUV with the doors locked. If the bikers started to act violent, I would have several thousand pounds of steel, glass, and plastic between me and this mob. In the event this mob got me out of the vehicle somehow, I would have sprayed each of them in the face through the open areas of their helmets with the pepper spray that I keep in the door pocket of my vehicle. The second thing I found wrong with this situation was the fact that there were crowds of people on the sidewalk watching all of this happen, and none of these people tried to break up this violent altercation. Third, this all took place in the street and traffic had to stop. None of the motorists got out of their vehicles to try to help. I understand some people don't want to put themselves in harm's way, but there are people out there who couldn't just watch one man being pummeled by a group of 5 other assailants. I just wish some of these onlookers would have come to this man's defense. I think back to some of the westerns I used to watch with my grandma when I was a kid. If any of you ever watched The Rifleman, do you think Lucas McCain, played by actor Chuck Connors, would have stood by and let this man be pummeled by a gang of 5 people? Heck no, he wouldn't. He would have came to this man's defense. But that show was on the air back in 1958 and was supposed to portray life during the 1880s. Times are certainly different in 2024 in California. The author of this article quoted Ian Ziering as saying, "This situation highlights a larger issue of hooliganism on our streets and the need for effective law enforcement responses to such behavior. Maybe it's time for someone like Lucas McCain to clean up the streets of Los Angeles just like he cleaned up the streets of Norfolk in the 1880s. I know that was a fictional television show, but I hope you see my point. I hate to hear about this type of crazy behavior happening in the streets of our great country. If you are part of a younger generation and you've never seen The Rifleman, you should really check it out sometime. That was a good, wholesome television show. That was during an era when people acted more civilized and didn't act like characters in the Grand Theft Auto video game. That's a video game, kids. That's not how you act in real life. That's a public service announcement to young people who gravitate towards games like that. I looked online today and I couldn't find any information about arrests made in this case. It will be interesting to see what transpires moving forward. I am so glad that Ian Ziering and his young daughter are both safe. I hope that his daughter doesn't suffer any long-term emotional trauma from watching her father get pummeled by what he referred to as hooligans. I'm curious, what would you have done if you watched all of this play out in front of you? Would you have tried to come to his defense? Tell me about it in the comment section below. On the topic of violence, I read an article today on Yahoo Finance put out by Bloomberg and written by Christian Weinberg, titled, "Maersk Decides the Red Sea is Too Unsafe for Its Ships for Now." According to the author, container shipping giant AP Moller Maersk AS said it will once again stop letting its vessels sail through the Red Sea, a vital trade corridor, after another of its carriers came under attack in the space of a few weeks. The author went on to say Iran-backed Houthi militants have said they are targeting merchant ships transiting the Red Sea that have any kind of link to Israel to punish Tel Aviv for the conflict in Gaza. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is sad to hear about this violence happening across the world, which could have an impact on shipping. I understand Maersk wanting to protect the cargo, its ships, and its employees with this decision. When I read this story, it made me think of the Captain Phillips movie. That incident took place on a Maersk vessel, but that violent situation took place near Somalia. This situation with the shipping giant Maersk in the Red Sea is just another example of the violence and instability in our world today. Here's some other interesting news out of the state of California. I read an article on yahoo.com put out by KTLA Articles written by Iman Palm titled, "California Retailers Are Now Required to Have Gender-Neutral Toy Aisles." According to the author, major retailers in California are now required to have gender-neutral toy aisles under a new state law that went into effect on Monday. The new law requires retail department stores physically located in California with 500 or more employees to maintain a gender-neutral section or area to be labeled at the discretion of the retailer. This is a law that was passed by the state legislature and signed by Governor Gavin Newsom in 2021. Well, ladies and gentlemen, here are my thoughts. When I was a kid, my grandmother would take me to Toys R Us and Child's World. These were my two favorite toy stores. When I walked into those toy stores as a kid, I did not care which toys were for boys or which toys were for girls or which toys were for both sexes. I was a kid and I was fascinated by Star Wars toys. I thought the first Star Wars movie called Episode 4 was the greatest movie ever made. I wanted a Millennium Falcon and a Han Solo figure. One Christmas, I was really disappointed that I didn't get one. After opening Christmas presents at my house, we traveled to my grandmother's house and I opened presents there. One of the presents was a Millennium Falcon. That was the second greatest Christmas present that I ever received. The greatest Christmas present was my sister, who was born on Christmas Day many years later. I have to wonder if this new law in California is going to help or hurt profits of businesses that deal in toys. I suppose time will tell. I'm curious, when you were a kid, did you care which toys were for boys or which toys were for girls? or which toys were gender neutral? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. On the topic of Star Wars, I read an article today on yahoo.com put out by AutoWire and written by Steven Symes titled, "California Police Can No Longer Play Jedi Mind Games." According to the author, starting on January 1, 2024, a new law keeps police in California from playing Jedi mind tricks and asking motorists if they know why they've been pulled over. Apparently, some officers pull this trick to get you to immediately confess your guilt. This is no longer legal in California because of Law AB-2773, which requires law enforcement to notify a driver why they've been pulled over at the time of the stop. In my opinion, this law makes a lot more sense than the gender-neutral toy store law that I just reported about. When I've been pulled over in the past, I always thought it was a dumb question. Just tell me why I was pulled over and tell me if I'm going to be receiving a ticket and let me get on my way. If you live in another state and an officer pulls you over and asks you if you know why you've been pulled over, don't respond like one of my friends did and say, "Does this have something to do with my prior arrest?" Right after I graduated from high school, I was riding with one of my friends. He got pulled over and the officer asked him if he knew why he was pulled over. He immediately asked the officer if this had something to do with his prior arrest. The officer responded and said, "I don't know. Should it have something to do with your prior arrest?" Then the officer asked to search the backseat of the vehicle and the trunk. The officer was on high alert after my friend started talking about his prior arrest. It turns out the officer pulled my friend over because he was driving too slow and he thought it was suspicious. My friend was driving too slow because he didn't want to get arrested again. When my friend rolled down the window and engaged in conversation with the police officer, perhaps he should have said, "I'm not the vehicle operator you're looking for. Move along, move along." If you are a Star Wars fan, you'll appreciate the Obi-Wan Kenobi reference from that movie. What do you think about this new law in California? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. Please keep in mind that everything in this video is for entertainment purposes only, and nothing in this video is financial advice or advice of any kind. If you need advice, seek advice from a qualified professional in good standing who puts your interests first and foremost. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to the channel. Please also consider sharing this video with your friends. I want to extend a special thanks to everyone who has subscribed to this channel. I want to also thank all of my channel members. Check out some of the great books that I suggest you consider reading in the description below. I've included Amazon affiliate links to these books. As an Amazon associate, I earn from qualifying purchases. Stay healthy and wealthy. I'll see everyone in the next video.